Hey, 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 welcome everyone. Thanks for tuning into another episode of the Vanguard. How you doing, Zach?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Crazy to think that it's only 3 days until fucking Christmas. It's actually remarkably nice outside here in Kansas City, at least. I know we're all going through this weird heat wave to remind us all of our existential, looming death all around us in the form of climate change. But before we get into any of that and other good stuff, I always want to begin our, if I can fucking start, that would be great by talking correctly. But as always, we like to start our podcast by shouting out our patrons, Vanguardians, comrade level patrons. Of course, you're all comrades in our hearts. But yeah, the special financial support that you guys help us out with, it keeps the show coming at you on a basically daily basis, keeps us full-time plugged in, making these videos, doing all that jazz. But yeah, Gavin, we got a lot of good stuff to talk about today. Got some good friends of the show coming on, Laura Fielding and Andre Stackhouse of the Red Berets. But we've also just got some good old-fashioned shit talking to do with the chat. Going to be a pretty laid-back stream today. We just wanted to come on, talk shit, hang out, and that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. Got some interesting and not going to lie, unexpected news to talk about today. I don't know what you think about this breaking news of the student debt payments being essentially freeze, the extension on the repayments. But I was definitely not expecting that. So I'm excited to get into that and talk about that a little bit more. But yeah, a big shout out to the patron community as well. That link is in the description if you guys want to help support the show and join our patron community. That's how you can do it. We do like to start and end every show with the shout out to our patrons. But yeah, we do have some special guests coming on the show today. Laura Fielding of the Red Berets. Always glad to catch up with Laura, as well as Andre Stackhouse and maybe a few others as well. So super excited to talk about whole Washington and the ongoing fight for universal health care. As well as the Red Berets, which we always like to spotlight as an organization. But yeah, do you want to get right into the student loan repayment story, Zach?
Yeah, this is something that I've been thinking about a lot, actually, just because, I think it's like fucking 40 million Americans or something crazy like that, where we were all about to have to start, paying our student loans back. And it's definitely going to be a huge burden, right? We've been talking about this across the country, basically, from every metric. You have young people to, older millennials, Gen Xers. I mean, we're all in our worst spots right now. Everybody's been crippled by the pandemic. There's no relief. If you have a family, your child tax credits are running out. Those aren't getting extended. And on top of all of that, you're going to have student loan payments that are about to restart for the first time since the beginning of the pandemic, when, as we just mentioned, the pandemic's about as, deadly as it's been since we've began the whole lockdown process. People are as poor as they've been almost since we began the lockdown process. And, now we don't have anything like eviction moratoriums protecting people, keeping them sheltered in this time. And on top of that, it's holiday season where there's an astronomical amount of pressure on parents to, provide monetary gifts for their children in order to, one, not keep the child, too different from their peers, but then also there's this massive game with Santa Claus and all this kind of stuff. It just makes it a really stressful time for people. And on top of all of that, Joe Biden had planned to make January 31st one of the hardest months for people of the whole year because it falls right after the holidays. The first month back to paying student loan payments, which for some people is hundreds and hundreds of dollars. For me, it was going to be like $250 a month that I was really, really not looking forward to. Outside of rent, it was going to be my most expensive bill. So just like that kind of shit, right? And it's not something that a lot of people are adequately able to pay for. Like, I was going to be able to get through it if I had to, but it's not a fucking something I was looking forward to. So, to give credit where credit's due, this pause, this, relief, it is something. But it's also still important to remind everybody that this man promised to cancel at least $10,000 worth of student debt. And that's not been followed up on.
Well, yeah, it's absolutely crazy. I mean, 50% or more of this country lives paycheck to paycheck. Can you imagine having to pay an additional $250 in bills essentially every month? That's crazy. So yeah, I mean, of course, this is a great thing. And even the people that are, barely making it that's still a big burden to weigh. So yeah, absolutely. We can take a look at Jen Psaki's statement on this. Again, this was just announced unexpectedly to me. So yeah, let's take a look here at what the press secretary had to say on this.
As you may have seen already, today the president announced that his administration is extending the pause on student loan repayments for an additional 90 days through May 1st, 2022. This is an issue both President Biden and Vice President Harris care deeply about. out. Well, the jobs recovery is one of the strongest on record, with nearly 6 million jobs added under President Biden, the fewest Americans filing for unemployment in more than 50 years, and overall unemployment down from 6% to 4.2%. We know some student loan borrowers are still coping with the pandemic and need some time before resuming payments. So this pause gives the administration time to manage the ongoing pandemic and further strengthen our economic recovery. In the meantime, the Department of Education, and they also issued a statement that hopefully you will have seen, will continue working with borrowers to support a smooth transition back into repayment and advance economic stability.
Yeah, so I do
as
want
you-
to jump in really quickly here, because she said she has to, even when they do something that's like nominally good or at least not bad, right? And I also do want to get into a point that was made by falsificationism. I didn't miss that. People who had private or refinance loans never got a pause. So that's talk about how this is not actually dealing with the problem for everybody, just individuals who had federal, typically FAFSA loans, right? So then that's very important to recognize, because Joe Biden has not provided a solution for individuals with private loans, even though he was himself responsible in large part for the 2005 bankruptcy bill and the economic policy reforms that made it so if you take out private student loans, you are in debt to them until you pay it off or you die. And even sometimes they can go after your relatives. You cannot file for bankruptcy, even though these are absolutely predatory loans that we're going after 18-year-olds. Okay, people who don't know any fucking better. And on top of that, they had an entire machine of culture telling every single person that if they didn't go to college, that they were going to be a failure, that everything was going to fall apart for them, that they were going to be fucking bums. And you're like, oh fuck, I'm 18. I'm worried about all my life. I don't want everything to fall apart. I don't want to be a failure. I don't want to, not be able to pay my bills and be homeless. And you're filled with so much fear at that age anyway. And now the government's going to say, no, yes, you're perfectly responsible and able to take out $100,000 in student loans. They wouldn't give you $100,000 to do fucking anything besides that. And now you're responsible for it for your entire life. So yeah, definitely something to consider, as well as the fact that this has absolutely no recourse for people who are suffering under the boot of private financial institutions, private student loan companies. But what she also does is she peddles a bunch of bullshit statistics at the beginning, talking about how the unemployment number is so down. And that's because people have permanently left the workforce. It's not a good thing that our unemployment numbers are down right now. People are still not working. And this happened, I believe, under Bill Clinton, but somebody in the chat can Google me and correct me, that they started really fucking with how we did the unemployment numbers in this country. And Chris Hedges talks about it really well. But, say you're working like 26 hours a week at Walmart for $7.25, and that's your entire income. Like, you're employed under this system. Or say you stopped looking for work permanently because you don't think there is no work where you live and there's no job or economic opportunity for you. Those people don't count. They're all considered employable or fully employed or whatever, not looking for work, so they're not unemployed. It's complete horseshit. And she says that as if they've gotten the economy back on track when they so clearly haven't.
Yeah, 100%. And can we just talk about how 90 days is not really enough? I mean, let's be honest. This is kind of reminding me right now of the extension of the eviction moratorium. That did they kick it down the road a month or two? Better than nothing, but not exactly a win overall. A real win would be cancellation of student loan debt, not just kicking the can down the road and giving people an extra 3 months to, get their shit together and have enough money to, be paying that back, which is often not realistic, especially if you're living paycheck to paycheck, especially if you have a family. It's hard to save up enough money to have that kind of buffer, especially with how low paying most jobs are in this country that are just accessible to your average person. So, I think this is something that is definitely not a bad thing that this happened, of course. But, the fight needs to continue, and we can't just, give up and go home and stop laying on the pressure now that we have this small victory, because we have to eventually get the student loan debts canceled altogether. That's what the pressure should really be for, and it can't stop being applied. So I think that's important to note, too, although, this does prove that activist pressure does have some effect, because, like I said, I wasn't even expecting this. I was expecting them to just, go straight on and continue with the repayments. So this is, the beginning of hopefully a bigger victory. And that's what we have to keep fighting for. And, the midterms are coming up, we should be using that as maximal pressure to point out to Joe Biden and the administration, the people in charge, that this is not only something good for the people, but it would also be great for him. That would be a benefit to his approval rating, a benefit to his reelection chances, a benefit to the Democrats' reelection chances in the House and the Senate come the midterms. If people actually feel like they're being helped by the party in power, if people actually feel like that executive authority is being used for good, then yeah, they're going to keep the Democrats in power longer. So not only should Biden obviously, cancel the student loan debts and keep extending the repayments and eventually cancel them, he should also legalize cannabis and free the nonviolent drug offenders. That's another thing that activist pressure should 100% be turned up to 100 right now, pressuring him to do that. Do you think there's any chance we'll see something like that over the next couple of years in an attempt to, hang on to power in the midterms?
It's a really tough one, right? Because I think under any other president, I would say, yeah, that's a no-brainer, right? It's going to be easy points for Joe Biden to go out there and just decriminalize cannabis, take it off of the Schedule 1 drug, let states do whatever the fuck they want to, pass their own laws if they want to ban it, whatever. That's probably the best you could hope for from a Democratic president, except for Joe Biden seems to be like unilaterally, like authoritarianly opposed to any kind of legislation moving forward on cannabis, right? He was the one holdup in keeping it off of the Democratic Party platform, right? And so what's happened because of that? Republicans have started to mobilize and make it a Republican issue. And what are they going to do? They're going to make it as big business friendly as possible, and they're going to continue to fuck the marginalized communities that have always been fucked, even though, if you, that was a way to make a living in those communities, and now that's going to be taken away from them, and that's wrong too. And not only were people risking their freedom to, sustain themselves economically this way, now you're just going to auction it off to like Anheuser-Busch and, whoever the fuck owns Philip Morris now and all this kinds of shit. It's going to be the alcohol, cigarette companies that buy up all of this. And that's how the Republicans want it, right? It's monopoly friendly. Those are what the lobbyists are pushing for. People who, and Gavin, you probably know more about this than I do, even on a local level. What do all the local upstart cannabis companies want? Those local shops, they all want to be bought up by the conglomerates, right? Like that's what they're all aiming for. And that's the way that the cannabis industry is going. It's completely fucked. And it's not the way that we would want it to be, where it's like a bunch of local shops and people who are, family growers. Like, this is our product in the bag. We grow it. We sell it. We care about our community. We take care of people, those kinds of things. So I don't know if we'll get that kind of legislation from Joe Biden. I also just think it's a terrible plan to, in May, right when you're going to be really, really revving up your midterm election talking points. That's going to be like right when people are about to just hit the ground running for the next 6 months to really win the elections. You're just going to have them. That's when people are going to start paying their student loan back. You're like, oh yeah, me too. I'll never fucking smoke a Coors joint. Don't get me wrong. But I'm just saying, that's the future that we're looking at. It won't be called the Coors joint, by the way. It'll be called the Snoop Dogg Double Puff Extraordinaire fucking whatever, and they'll have a bunch of labeling over it to make it look trendy and fucking cool. But when you look at the bottom, you'll see, from the Rocky Mountain, Colorado provider Coors. But anyway, Gavin.
Yeah, and given Biden's deep ties to Walmart and other, corporate industry, we're probably going to see Walmart cannabis and Amazon cannabis and all that stuff. Even if, Biden were eventually to do it, that's definitely how it would go, unfortunately. Before we invite on our guests, I did want to give a quick shout out to a friend of the show, Glenn Greenwald. Recently tweeted about this show itself. You can see here two of the smartest and most honest leftists, hosts of the excellent Vanguard pod, on what a fraud Pramila Jayapal's statements are, and decide for yourself if you should be listening to DNC loyalists on MSNBC or people freed from party captivity. Sorry, I can't speak today, guys. But yeah, really appreciate that from Glenn, acknowledging, that Pramila Jayapal's statements were as funny as we thought they were. And he links here to this clip posted by another friend of the show, Case Study QB. Shout out to Case. Rachel Maddow and Lawrence O'Donnell gushing over Pramila Jayapal. So a big thank you to Glenn Greenwald, because I actually hadn't seen this yet. And we can take a look at this now, because this is totally fucking crazy. And as Glenn says, proof that, this is not what you should be watching. MSNBC is not going to give you anything interesting or outside of the mainstream politically. It's all just going to be worship of the biggest simps around, like Pramila. So let's take a listen to this. And again, just shout out to Glenn Greenwald.
And then your show's optimist in chief, Congresswoman Jayapal, actually presents an optimistic view of what's next. She actually does it, and it's real. I listen to it. I sit there with all my experience trying to tear it apart, And no, it's real, it's legitimate. And I got to say, she's brilliant at it diplomatically in her presentation of it. But it's just my favorite thing to watch. To watch those words of optimism just washing over you, and you just, making them, let them get into your heart and go on with life that way.
It is like a recurring bit on this show. You're completely right that I bring Congresswoman Jayapal on and I say, looks to me like nothing can happen. Looks to me like it's all over. Whew, this was a dark one. And she's every single time, I hear you, Rachel, but actually. And then she's got something to say that is not pie in the sky and is not some made up thing and is not like there'll be better days ahead. She always has some constructive thing that can happen and some little based in reality thing that I'm not factoring into my little dark cloud. To be the chair of the Progressive Caucus is by design to always be asking for things that you are mostly not going to get. But she has this gift of asking for things and presenting the case for things in a way that is both reasonable and makes it seem likely that she is going to get at least a lot of what it is she's asking for. And
because progressives are known for winning.
I am the original dark cloud, but it works even on me.
Yeah, Chair, she's on the phone with them. She's on the phone with them trying to figure out where do we go.
And she's not, she's not putting a happy face on something that doesn't deserve it. I mean, she said on our air, like, listen, Senator Manchin is, he's a good person. He's a nice person. She's personally complimentary to him, but she's also saying he has broken his word and you're only as good as your word in this town. And he has betrayed the president and betrayed his own word and essentially not argued in good faith, not negotiated in good faith. So she's not a pushover. She's not like she's, it's not like she's being irresponsible or kind of a squish on these.
Yeah, backbone Jayapal. That's what we call her. Like, what are you fucking talking about? Like, it honestly, shout out to Glenn for shouting out the Vanguard, but shame on you for making me watch that fucking clip. But no, I'm just kidding. It was fucking, it's embarrassing to watch. And honestly, it's hard for me to even realize that there are people out there who will take this woman seriously, but there are, and she's completely fucking delusional. And honestly, what it reveals more to me than anything about Rachel Maddow is it reveals so much to me about Pramila Jayapal. She is being exactly what the hashtag slay, Dem Resistance, K-Hive, Rachel Maddow, whatever the fuck you want to call them. She's being exactly what they want. She is running cover for the president. She's being his punching bag when he wants her to be. She's getting fucking shit and smiling about it. When he decides that, he wants to fucking screw over the progressives like he will. It's bullshit. And if you're getting compliments from Rachel Maddow, you should just know you're fucking up bad.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I'm like, if this is how you're being talked about on MSNBC by Rachel Maddow and the likes, then you fucked up. You aren't, doing the leftist cause correctly, because this is some bullshit. The way, she's not pie in the sky like the other lefties. That sounds like the way they would talk about Hillary Clinton or something. So, yeah, I thought that was totally crazy. Shout out to Glenn, obviously, for the shout out. We really appreciate the love, man. And also, for sharing that clip with us, which truly was even worse than I could have expected. That's pretty mind blowing stuff and really tells you a lot about where we are as a progressive movement, at least as far as our congressional Congress people go. Congressional Congress people. Anyway, without further ado, we can welcome our guests to the stream. We featured the folks from Hull, Washington and Red Berets on our podcast a couple of times in the past. You guys might remember Laura Fielding, Andre Stackhouse, and Scott Desnoyers, as well as Lisa Theobald, who's never actually been on our show before, but we're welcoming for the first time. And Hull, Washington, if you guys aren't aware, is fighting for universal health care within the state of Washington. It's one of the groups that's trying to do the state-by-state strategy while we wait for a candidate to embrace national single payer. A lot of states have organizations which are attempting to secure universal health care for their citizens, and we think that's a great cause here at the Vanguard. We've welcomed to the show a few times in the past, and we're looking forward to another update. So without further ado, we can welcome all four of our guests. How's it going, guys? Thanks so much for your time.
How's it going, guys?
It's going well. Good to be here.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks for everybody for making the time. Obviously, we're at a busy point. Everybody's running around, scrambling, getting things together for the family with the holidays. But appreciate you guys making time for the Vanguard. Gavin, what did you want to go ahead and kick things off with?
Well, if you guys just want to start by introducing yourselves each, just a couple sentences about who you are and what you do, and maybe introduce anyone that's not familiar to what the goals are of Whole Washington or Red Berets, and what you guys have been working on as of late. We can
Well, I'm
start
happy
with
to kick off
Scott,
this
and then
if
go to
it's-
Andre, and then Lisa, then Laura, if that's cool. That's just the arrangement on the screen. So if that works for you guys.
Yeah, it works for me. Scott DeNoyer. I'm from upstate New York. I'm actually in a town called Stillwater, but it's actually really Saratoga. And you're familiar with the Saratoga Revolutionary War. I'm active for the New York Health Act, as well as Whole Washington, as well as CalCare, and on any place that has a single payer universal health care bill. That's pretty much our motto. We're trying to fight on all fronts and to get to a national level. And the Red Berets are a symbol of our solidarity and a symbol of healthcare justice. Andre?
Hi, everyone. Andre Stackhouse here. I'm from Seattle. And the first time I was invited on this show, I think I was a volunteer with Whole Washington, hadn't collected a single signature for them yet, and I'm very excited to announce that less than a week ago, I was appointed campaign director. So we've had a little bit of a shift in personnel, and that's where I ended up, and I'm very, very excited for 2022. I think we've planted so many amazing seeds for this campaign, and you're about to see them pop out of the ground. So that's what we're here to talk about today.
Awesome. Well, it's so great to see you again, Scott and Andre, both friends of the show that have been on in the past. Really great to see you guys back on the show, and hope you guys are both doing well. And hello, Lisa. We've never had you on the show before, but welcome to the Vanguard, and please introduce yourself. It's so great to see you.
Great to see you guys. Big fan. Been watching you forever. Thank you so much for having us here. My name's Lisa Theobald. I'm the operations director of Red Berets. Really, what I am here is to facilitate everything that's going on as best I can with the Red Berets. We are here to support universal healthcare efforts and fight on all fronts to get everyone healthcare as quickly as we can. And we also are recruiting people in states, craftivists, people to make berets, but any artists, so that we can further what we're doing here. And I'm going to pass to Laura.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, thanks for welcoming me back. It's a pleasure always. I'm Laura Fielding. I'm the executive director of the grassroots coalition, Red Berets for Medicare for All. I'm also a board member of Whole Washington, and I would love to congratulate Andre Stackhouse. He's been doing such a phenomenal job leading the social media team.
Round of applause for Andre.
I think that was it. Yeah, so looking forward, I'm just absolutely gobsmacked by this video that's going to be shared here that Andre put together. This field plan is just nothing short of inspiring. It's spoken by someone who knits a lot of stitches but doesn't consider herself a numbers person at all. I just feel really inspired. And then we'll also be really excited to talk about an event that we're going to be doing, promoting. It's going to be on January 15th. So thanks for welcoming us back.
Yeah, absolutely, Laura. It's so great to see you again. As always, great friend of the show. Always welcome on the Vanguard. And thank you also, AV, for the $5 super sticker. Really appreciate that. And you mentioned that video, Laura, that Andre put together. This is a great video. I agree, very well put together. Called How Whole Washington Will Put Universal Healthcare on the Ballot, and we'll play that and react to it in a second. Did you want to give a little bit of an intro to this, Andre, and talk about how you put this together?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess I'd been working on material like this for a long time. I spent a lot of time, like I wrote a one-pager about a year ago, really trying to give people take this and read it, and it will give you in broad strokes the most important information about this campaign. And then we started to design this Signature Captain program that was designed to really help us build the infrastructure that we sort of wished that we had last year for next year. And so I created this orientation and I'd been running people through it, and it's very labor intensive, right? And so the immediate first goal was I just need a video covering some of this same stuff, so that I can just run the video and then it's consistent every time. It takes only 10 minutes, and so I started to work on it, and I tried to hit a pretty good mark of not overproduced, right? I wanted to keep basically something I could produce relatively quickly, which informs a lot about the style. I know you two are filmmakers, and I don't know if you had any guesses by looking at it, but this was mostly made in Google Slides. So we, just needed to crank something out, but I'm pretty happy with how it turned out.
I'm also a fucking dog shit editor. All of our production value comes from Gavin, so I feel you, bro.
Well, thanks so much for the intro, Andre, and really excited to check this out. We can take a look, and also I just put in the description of this video, and I'll throw it in the chat too. If you guys want to support Whole Washington or Red Berets, I'll put the links for that in the chat, and like I said, in the description. So if you guys want to support them or buy yourself one of these Red Berets, that is the way to do it. It's a great way to show solidarity with the movement, get the word out, and of course just support these activists and the goals they're working towards. But yeah, without further ado, let's take a look at this great video. Thank you once again, Andre Stackhouse, and congratulations too. Let's check this out though.
Washington State is home to over 7.6 million people. If it was a country, its GDP per capita would be higher than wealthy nations like Australia, Germany, and Norway. But while all of these countries have free universal healthcare systems, 6.6% of Washington State, or over 450,000 people, have no health insurance at all. What can we do to ensure that everyone has comprehensive healthcare no matter what? Or what can we do to provide healthcare that's always there? The answer is universal public health insurance. Senate Bill 5204 would create a universal public health insurance plan called the Whole Washington Health Trust. That plan would cover all Washington residents. That's right, everyone, regardless of age, income, or employment status, everyone's covered. It also covers everything. In fact, it's a huge expansion beyond traditional Medicare because it includes dental, vision, hearing, mental health, reproductive health, and much more. For a full list, go to Whole Washington's website. And it also costs between $5 and $10 billion less than our current healthcare system every year. And remember, that's without leaving anyone uninsured or in medical debt. So how do we pass it? Well, in Washington State, we have ballot initiatives. Ballot initiatives are a process in which citizens can collect a required number of signatures to put a law on the ballot to be either approved or rejected by a direct vote of the people. This is the process we use to legalize cannabis and marriage equality. So the question is, what about universal health care? According to the Washington State Constitution, the number of signatures we need to collect is 8% or more of the votes cast for governor in the last election. How many is that? Well, just under 2.5 million people voted for governor in 2020. 8% of that is just under 325,000. However, the Secretary of State recommends an additional 15 to 20% cushion to account for invalid signatures. For instance, maybe someone who isn't a registered voter or who isn't from Washington State signs our petition. So, an additional 23% cushion gives us a goal of 400,000. 400,000 total signatures to put universal public health insurance on the ballot. One thing you might notice about this is that it's actually fewer than the number of people who are uninsured. So, how are we going to collect the signatures? That's where the Whole Washington signature captains come in. The idea is very simple. We recruit 800 captains, and we have them each commit to leading the collection of 500 signatures. What do we mean by leading? Well, the signature captains don't necessarily need to personally collect every signature. It's just on them to make sure that it happens. This is a leadership position, which means you will have support if you need it. Why 800 captains? Well, it's a big number, but it's doable. We know that there are thousands of supporters of Medicare for All and universal health care in Washington state. So the question is, can we turn 800 of them into signature captains? It's likely more captains than we would actually need to get the signatures, but we consider that a good thing because it forces us to focus on recruitment. Remember, we don't just need to get this on the ballot, we need to win the election. So it's important that we bring in as many people as we can. Why 500 signatures each? Well, it's totally achievable by a single person. Anyone can do it, but it's a large enough number that it naturally encourages the formation of teams, which is something we really want to encourage captains to do to make these goals so much more achievable. But even without a full team, this can be done in just 10 to 15 hours. So we really want to emphasize that you can do this. You can do this. And one way we're going to help captains succeed at collecting their 500 signatures is by making sure they have support from other captains through a buddy system. So as part of your onboarding, you're going to be paired with a big buddy and you're going to be paired with a little buddy. And just like that, every signature captain will have a support system of 2 other people in the program that they can go to anytime they need help. Leading up to signature gathering, we're going to be very focused on recruiting volunteers and assigning them to captains to form small teams. Depending on the availability of volunteers and the needs of each captain, those teams may look quite different. Some captains might not need a team at all. Our goal is for every captain to have a team that they feel will make them successful. Now, sometime before signature gathering begins, each captain will be receiving a box containing everything they need to get their signatures. We're calling it the Signature Captain Field Kit because we imagine that you could simply hand the box to a volunteer and it would provide clear step-by-step instructions for completing the signature captain commitment. Inside that box will be at least 25 petition sheets and 5 boards for you and your team, as well as the Signature Captain Field Guide that contains all sorts of practical information like how to organize a shift, how to recruit volunteers to your team, how to do the data entry, how to send the petition sheets in. And of course, every box will contain a hand-knitted red beret as a gift and a symbol of solidarity donated by a volunteer craftivist in support of universal health care. So with a team, a box of sheets, a field guide for how to gather signatures, and a red beret to look great doing it, every signature captain will be well prepared to get universal health care out in front of voters and on the ballot. The filing deadline for our ballot initiative is in March, and signature gathering will begin shortly after in April. The campaign is nearly 9 months long, and signed petition sheets must be postmarked in late December. Everything before signature gathering begins we're calling the pre-campaign, and our main goals will be to recruit and train the 800 signature captains, plan shifts and signature gathering events, and build pre-awareness of the upcoming initiative campaign. Once signature gathering begins, you have a lot of time to reach your commitment. Using all the time available, that comes out to just 15 signatures a week, probably less than an hour of work per week. Once we get the sheets in, the real campaign begins. Election day will be November 2023. So, you're all on board with the plan and you want to know, how do I become a signature captain? Well, the first thing to know is that anyone can do it. You don't need to be 18. You don't need to be a registered voter. You don't even need to be from Washington state. If you're willing and able to make the commitment we need, then you can be a signature captain. Step 1, you fill out the signature captain interest form and someone from Whole Washington will be in touch with you soon. There's a link at the end of the video and in the description. The next step is to attend a Signature Captain orientation to learn about the Ballot Initiative and the Signature Captain program. Once you understand the program and are willing to make the core commitment, you're ready to sign the Signature Captain contract. The core commitment is leading the collection of the 500 signatures, working with a small team of volunteers and participating in the buddy system, ensuring the data entry for those signatures, which is critical for keeping us on track with our goals and finding new volunteers, and last, ensuring that the petition sheets get sent into whole Washington, where they'll eventually be sent off to the Secretary of State. So if you understand the commitment and are ready to make it, then you're ready to sign the contract, and congratulations, you're officially a whole Washington Signature Captain. And that's really all there is to it. That's how 800 well-organized signature captains in a bit of planning can put universal healthcare on the ballot, can win healthcare that's always there, and can make Washington whole. So thanks for watching. If you'd like to learn more or get involved, you can fill out the Signature Captain interest form, and someone from Whole Washington will be in touch with you soon. You can also keep track of the campaign by following Whole Washington on Twitter @Whole Washington. And if you're watching this as part of orientation, thank you so much for stepping up. We're very excited to work with you.
Awesome. That's fucking dang, dude.
Yeah, great job, Andre. I wanted to say amazing job. Production value was way higher than I expected when you were just modestly describing it. That was awesome, dude.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I just wanted to say again, I think the Red Berets is such a great idea, really leading the charge in this country as far as, continuing this fight for universal health care. As I've pointed out on the podcast before, just because we didn't get a president who's, full on in support of universal health care as we had hoped with Bernie Sanders does not mean that we all just pack up our bags and go home. We have to keep fighting for this, keep the awareness raised for this policy, keep reminding people that, the rest of the developed world has these policies. They're privileged enough to have universal health care. It's us that are in the minority as far as developed countries go that do not have this for our people. And you guys just refuse to give up the fight. And I love that energy. I love that spirit. I love the Red Berets. It's such a great way to spread the awareness and solidarity and keep the movement alive and visible. So yeah, just, huge props to you all for keeping this going. I think it's so great. I want to hear more about, updates as far as the signature gathering is concerned, as far as, what all the next plan is going forward. Is there anything you guys have to share in that regard?
Yeah, and I don't want to take too much of the floor. I know we've got Lisa and Scott here as well, but I guess basically we've set some goals for ourselves. We're doing weekly social media pushes, Medicare for All Monday and Single Payer Sundays, because we're trying to basically keep our social media presence growing. We need to hit 10K, I think, before the signature captain or before the signature gathering begins. We're just about to hit 6,500. So that's the goal we've set for the new year. And then we're trying to hit 50 signature captains before the new year as well. We're currently at 35. It's, I'm pretty proud of the momentum we've built because most of this happened in December. So, a lot of these goals we set for ourselves they're goals to keep us on track. We need to be constantly adapting to the situation that's in front of us. But we expect major scaling of this in 2022. So most of those 35 signature captains are whole Washington volunteers who have been with us for years, who we needed to kind of re-engage, bring back in and present a clear plan and get them into, an organizational system like the signature captain program. 2022 is when we're really going to turn this external and be hitting up local activist organizations, and building as many connections and taking this pitch, to every legislative district, and saying, do you want to do this with us? So
Yeah. One of the most inspiring things, if I can just break in, Andre, was something that I'm super glad you included in your video because it really stuck out to me. I think it'll stand out to so many people because, it's a really unique power balance that we don't often have on the left. Every signature gathered in Washington state can come from somebody that doesn't have health insurance, and you can still get to 400,000. That's powerful. That's an important thing that I think people need to realize. So it is not a matter of, schmoozing the power holders. It's not a matter of, winning it over with people who want to compromise. It's a matter of saying, hey, we're going to do this, and we can do it with the people who already do not have this. So either get with us or get out of our way. I just think that's so, empowering for people who aren't insured, don't have health insurance, don't see a lot of options, don't see a lot of visibility with people like themselves. This is a time where regular working class people who, just exist in this, late stage capitalist society to come together and say, we all are deserving of healthcare in the state of Washington, and we can give it to ourselves. We don't have to ask permission for it. I just think that's super exciting and, just a beautiful thing that I'm really glad that you included in there because it helped me, have some perspective on all this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one other thing that I wanted to ask you guys about, and feel free any of you who want to chime in specifically, because of the whole Washington element. We were just talking about Representative Jayapal, who, in my opinion, has basically dropped the ball when it comes to these negotiations as the leader of the progressive congressional caucus. And, if you guys feel differently, feel free to push back. But it totally feels like she gave away the progressives' leverage when it came to this Build Back Better bill. And I was just wondering if you guys have any commentary on her performance lately as the leader of the progressive caucus, as your representative in Washington, and if you think that she's any closer than she was last time we spoke to endorsing whole Washington, or if that's something you guys are still trying to get. Have you just given up on that? Because I thought it was totally disappointing the last time we spoke that Representative Jayapal, who of course was one of the big people behind the Medicare for All bill, one of the writers of it, hadn't gotten on board with this continued fight for, this continued quest for universal health care, even at a state level, her state. It seems like something that would be natural for her to get on board with in the event that we don't have a president who's supporting her legislation. So any updates or commentary on Representative Jayapal would be great from anyone that wants to, divulge any.
I'd actually like to defer to Andre on this one as well. I've made my opinions really publicly known, that I think it's unacceptable that she hasn't endorsed whole Washington. I continue to ask on social media. I continue to call her office. But Andre is actually one of her constituents and obviously now whole Washington campaign director. So I'd like to hear from him what we might do as a coalition moving forward to further, make it possible. What do you think, Andre?
Appreciate it. Yeah. So I guess, I should start by, appreciating what Representative Jayapal has done for the Medicare for All movement as the author of a bill that we still consider a gold standard single-payer healthcare bill. And I think that we've always really, really wished that we could say that she was our greatest champion at whole Washington. And I would say that my experience in the Medicare for All movement, and I've seen a fair amount of it at this point. I worked with Bernie, I work with third parties, I work with DSA, I work with whole Washington, I work national, I work state. And the biggest problem I have seen in this movement is factionalization. And there are very few who are willing to step out and say that we are creating a mass movement out of this. It's not about my bill, it's not about my candidate, it's about getting everybody health care as fast as we can. And really having a little bit of humility about how that's going to happen, humility about there's not necessarily a clear, obvious path, and we need to be open-minded and recognize that many people are doing amazing work on many different campaigns, pursuing different strategies in different locations. So the mass movement that's going to be required to pass this is going to require that factionalization to end, and I would hope that it would come from the leaders of the movement, like Pramila Jayapal, who could say, enough, we need to create a mass universal healthcare movement. And stepping forward and endorsing whole Washington, I think, would be one way to do that. With regards to Build Back Better and her negotiations there, I mean, that is a complicated process, but I've been wanting to work on, and you might see it in the next couple weeks or so. I wanted to basically tell that story just from the perspective of a Medicare for All activist, right? So we can go all the way back to the primary campaign where virtually every candidate wanted to get on board Medicare for All for the reasons that they believed that this was something the party supported, right? They recognized that this was what the voters wanted, and so they said that they supported it in so many different ways, right? We always had skepticism about it. But by the time we had an elected president, we had a very, very mealy-mouthed promise for a public option, right? By the time Build Back Better negotiations are beginning, the most that's being discussed is expansion of Medicare with the age down to 60 and the inclusion of vision, dental, hearing, right? I don't even know if hearing, by the time those had been stripped out, right, the last thing that was hanging on was hearing.
I think that's gone
amount
too.
Yeah, but hearing might have gotten stripped out. I honestly, I stopped paying attention at a certain point because I was like, yes, eventually you're going to tell me that it all got stripped out and that it didn't pass. And that's exactly where we are now, right? So I can't say, you know, maybe other people who got something in Build Back Better are happy, right? All I can say is that as somebody who makes this my primary issue, right, I can't really say I got anything out of it, right? So, you know, for me, the way that these negotiations went, it's a huge loss. It's like a huge, virtually across the board loss, and I don't know what would have made that different. But I hope that Pramila Jayapal or anyone else who's going to be in that position is taking notes on this. I mean, we just can't take losses like this over and over again and say that this is a real, you know, this is a real movement. Like, we're gonna get this. It's like, at a certain point, people want you to be, they want you to level with them, right? If this is not happening, if this is not a movement, if you're not the leader of this, then please let us know, right? We need to figure out what we're going to do.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's kind of what we talked about a little bit on our stream yesterday. Pramila Jayapal is out here basically gaslighting her audience, her movement, saying that, yes, this is still going to happen. We're still going to get this bill passed, and basically defending the Biden administration and even Joe Manchin to some extent, despite their obstructionism, despite their ability to, you know, fight for this bill on behalf of its policies, the ones that were in it originally, the ones that were actually popular, the ones that you mentioned, the hearing and Medicare expansion, that even those weren't nearly enough, but at least they were something. It seems like the left flank in Congress, when it comes to issues like healthcare, is really not even a left flank at all anymore. It doesn't seem like they're aggressive. It doesn't seem like they treat the establishment as antagonists or obstructionists to these policies, which of course we all know we need. And it just seems so frustrating that there seems to be that lack of urgency, at least in Congress, at least from our supposed leaders like Jayapal. So yeah, I totally find that frustrating and echo your feelings, Andre. Does anyone else, Scott or Lisa or Laura, have anything to say about this? Yeah, go ahead, Lisa.
So I think that what we all came to as a group of individuals who were desperately for years fighting for Medicare for all, and state-based efforts as well, because you can't put all your eggs in one basket. Laura came along. I mean, I was in healthcare for over a decade, and then I moved out of it professionally and started working as an activist. And I ran into Laura, and we met up, took a trip down to Texas to support Sema Hernandez, who was opening up her Senate campaign. And from that meetup, we started to have discussions. This was, what, 3 years ago, Laura? And we talked about doing a 50-state strategy, trying to get people in all 50 states. So, Kish Kasha, when you asked about can people in Connecticut do this? Yes, please reach out to us. We would love to establish you and anybody in your state or around you that wants to do this with us, because the more we have people in all of these states, the more that we can come together and raise awareness around any initiative, whether it be the whole Washington Ballot Initiative or New York Health Act, where when they're moving things along through legislation, who needs pressured, who needs volunteers, who needs people to phone bank, who needs signature captains. The more of us that are out there with red berets on talking about this across the country, the more we're going to socialize this and make that movement happen. And notice we didn't talk about any politicians in that whole subject matter.
Yeah, well, that's what you just pointed out is so important too, and it's one of the things that's honestly, I think, the greatest tragedy of the Bernie Sanders campaign, even greater than the fact that he lost, was the fact that the whole revolutionary movement, if you want to call it that, this whole wave of spirited people of all generations working towards these shared goals, it all fractured and dissipated after Bernie's campaign was unsuccessful. You know, something like Red Berets. You know, the fight doesn't end for equality after we all have healthcare. You know, there's still other things that this group of people, you know, you have your 400,000 strong army get built in Washington. Well, there's a lot of good you can do with 400,000 committed people ready to vote on something or ready to organize around something, whether that's, you know, raising a minimum wage or, you know, building up new homeless shelter. Getting your way basically is what that means. And it could be used in so many different avenues that once you build up, once you do all of this hard work, it doesn't disappear if you're a real organization of activists like the Red Berets. You know, it's not about a political victory. It's about an election victory, rather. It's about, you know, a policy victory, something concrete that will actually benefit people and change their lives, you know, and it can be replicated, which I think is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a real quick shout out to Harrison too. Thanks so much for the 1999 super chat.
I have
Really
a red
appreciate
beret.
that. And yeah, Zach does have his red beret. I think he just forgot to put it on before we went live today. But yeah, we do both have red berets. Thanks to the great knitters at the Red Berets. So thank you again for those. Love them, wear them often, especially now that it's getting colder, has a real practical use as well. I find myself wearing it just when I'm, you know, outside walking around or going to get coffee or something. So, you know, really a huge thank you for that. And thank you also, Harrison, for the super chat. Really genuinely appreciate that. And if anyone themselves wants a red beret, like I said, the link is in the description. Hit up that. But yeah, does anyone else have any message they want to, you know, let our audience know about? I haven't heard much from you, Scott, if you had anything to say. But yeah, just anything, any updates, any, you know, words anyone wants to share, feel free. The floor is yours.
Well, one of the things that Andre didn't know we were going to do this when he made his video is we're going to be also including in the packages the healthcare solidarity apple pins that we have here on our berets. These are handmade. They only cost me a couple of pennies to make, but they're handmade. And the healthcare apple, solidarity apple, what it represents is, like we were talking earlier on the fight on all fronts, you know, we are connecting the apples from coast to coast and fighting for healthcare. And if you look at the apple, the only thing that connects the two sides of the graphic is the heartbeat through the middle, just like our fight for healthcare. So that's going to be included in every one of the signature gathering packages as well. So that's 800 pins I have to make. And the New York Health Act also, there's an update on that. We last legislative session, for the first time, we finally got the majority support in the Senate. So the only reason we don't have a universal single payer healthcare bill here in New York is because the Senate Speaker and the Assembly Leader decided not to call it for a vote. And the Senate Leader went a little bit further. Her name is Senator Andrea Cousins, and pulled the Health Committee prior to the New York Health Act getting through. You know, 100% kneecapping it by herself on purpose because she had the votes, you know, or at least she had the proclaimed votes. We had the majority that said that they co-sponsored the bill. And when she called it, of course, those senators would then have to actually put up or shut up. So with that in mind, Laura, being such a great leader as she was, had a week posting event out in Washington for Annette Cleveland, who is blocking the bill, whole Washington. And I decided I would just kind of steal her shine and copy that same event down here for Andrea Cousins. We have to get her to call that bill for a vote. So that's our ground game this year. We're going to put a lot of pressure on her. We're getting a lot of pushback from union leaders who know that the New York Health Act would benefit their employees, but not benefit the foothold that they have on their members. So we have to make sure that we get a hold of their members and tell them to get a hold of their leaders, because we've spoken to the leaders and they don't care. They care about their foothold more than their members. So we got to let their members know where their leaders stand. But yeah, that's what we've got going on here.
Well, thanks so much for letting us know, Scott, and thanks so much for joining us as always. Of course, you're always welcome on the Vanguard. Let us know if you ever want to come on and let us know about any more updates or share any other news. But yeah, that definitely sounds like another example. I've heard about this happening in the past, where sometimes the union leadership is not really on board with the actual members of the union, and they want to make those kind of decisions on behalf of their membership. And yeah, that's always really unfortunate. So I'm glad to hear that you guys are fighting back against that, because of course the New York Health Act, just like whole Washington, would benefit working class people. That's a given. Of course, the people need healthcare, and they shouldn't be reliant on their job, their employment, to provide them that. So yeah, thank you for sharing that, and thank you for continuing on the fight, Scott. Love to talk to you, man, and great to see you once again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did want to just shout out to Kimberly Davis in the comment section. She's asking if she can look at the specific legislative proposal. That's going to be on the website that we link to as well. You can check all that out, as well as a lot of good informative, explainer things as well. So that's always good. And also a quick shout out to the Red Precarian. Shout out to Dr. Joseph Firestone in the chat, but not chatting. Much respect to you for your efforts. And yeah, echo that sentiment as well here at the Vanguard.
Shout out to Dr.
I have two
Firestone.
really exciting announcements to make, if I still have the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, Laura.
Okay. I'll start really just to kind of express to people how exciting it is to be. We already have pledges for, I think it is, I'll throw out the number 200. I think it's 180 Red Berets. Shout out to all the crocheters out there. I knit, but most of the crafters who are creating for this movement are actually doing crochet. So anyway, the point is we have about 180 berets that are pledged by April 15th, which is the hopeful launch date, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, of the whole Washington next ballot initiative. And I will continue to recruit people, because we're hoping to meet and keep pace with the goals of Andre's campaign plan for signature captains. So we've agreed that we're going to knit and crochet 800 of those, and we're well on our way to having the berets pledged that we're going to need. And I just wanted to say that if this isn't the announcement, by the way, but I'm just letting people know that if 200 signature captains strong were to ask even one of their team members, or one person that asks, why are you wearing, what's the red beret mean? That would mean, and encourage them to go and purchase a handcrafted beret from wholewashington.com, or, Red Berets, MedicareForAll.com also links to the merch page. That would in fact earn or raise rather $7,000. And if 800 strong were able to convince one person of their team or from the general public to go and purchase a handcrafted red beret, that would raise $28,000 for the whole Washington campaign. That's very significant. And if 800 could convince 5 people, that would be $140,000. So everyone, you can go and purchase these on wholewashington.com. It really, we're doing a lot of valuable fundraising. And just understand that every single stitch is knit or crocheted in solidarity of this through the state's strategy. We are going to open the floodgates for the whole United States of America. So to get to that announcement, on the 15th, the Red Berets are doing, I guess we could call it a Red Berets craft in, but it's really an M4A community building event specifically for whole Washington to raise awareness. Andre is going to be presenting the whole Washington signature captain plan, but we'll have speakers from, of course, the Red Berets, voices from whole Washington, and also M4A, other voices of the M4A community come and speak over a 3-hour time period, which seems like it's a lot. We'll look at hoping to live stream it. So that will be on January 15th, which is a Saturday. So anybody, if you're following at 50 Lines Only, that's Lisa Theobald on Twitter, you can go and see the Action Network link. You can RSVP, and you can come support the Red Berets supporting whole Washington. That's announcement number 1. Announcement number 2 is Kenny Ballantyne is actually going to be launching the movie trailer, the healthcare justice documentary movie trailer on Friday. That's Friday, Christmas Eve. So less than 2 days from now. So that will go live along with his new website on Friday, and it will be on YouTube, and there will be Twitter posts, Facebook, all of that. So just look for that movie trailer. We're really, really excited about that. And I think he's hoping to maybe come on the Vanguard like in the new year to talk about the
Oh yeah, well,
future.
obviously we're happy to have Kenny whenever he wants to, and we'll definitely react to that video on our stream when it comes out. And as a couple of
Awesome.
people in the comment section have suggested, we should get a group of people on a call-in episode here sometime in the future to really hash this out. That way people from the audience can call in, ask you guys questions about organizing, getting Red Berets started in their own hometowns, perhaps, that kind of good stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
We welcome it.
absolutely. If anyone doesn't know, we are doing a weekly show now on the audio podcasting app Call-In. So if anyone wants to download that and check out our weekly episodes, sometimes we'll even be doing 2 a week. Make sure to do that. And yeah, that's a great idea. Kishkashta brought that up. This will be good on Call-In. Couldn't agree more. We'll definitely have to get some of you guys to come on there, and that way we can have a more long form discussion where we can really get into all the details. And yeah, some of the listeners too can get in on the conversation and ask questions too. So that's an awesome idea. And also Kishkasha is wondering if there's anyone specific he should connect with. He says, I'll pass it on in Connecticut or is involved. Comrades, this will be good on Call-In. So yeah, if there's anything that anyone wants to respond to Kishkashta with as far as, potentially getting something started in Connecticut or other states around the country, feel free to respond to that.
So one thing we do have is there's 19 states that have legislation. We are reaching out now and asking everyone if they want to get involved. We're going to link people up. So Laura, are you at Red Berets Medicare for All? Is that your Twitter handle?
Yeah, at Red Berets M for All. And so there's a couple of things. One is that there's the work that Andre Stackhouse is doing, building the coalitions that maybe he'll talk about in a separate live stream or on the Call-In. But then there's also like the creative work that we're doing through the Red Berets. And so, I think Andre says that his DMs are always open. So, and the same thing with Lisa. It depends on how you want to be plugged in. But the Red Berets, I'm hoping that you can all see that, this is completely replicatable. Not
Absolutely.
only, for states that can do a ballot initiative, it's like the signature captain plan would work anywhere. It would be brilliant. And then also we're hoping to show how the creative grassroots can fundraise. And so Whole Washington is an excellent template, and the Red Berets kind of showing this is what happens when we recruit more and more crafters. And we'd love to get people involved in every single state so that they can begin supporting their state efforts that are already underway or starting things up if they want to get plugged into our community. So people should be in touch with
Awesome.
Andre.
And it looks like we also have someone, Resourceful Nerd, saying that they're a knitter and wondering if they could potentially volunteer. Would, going to your website be the right place to contact you, or do you want me to link your Twitters?
Yes, please. Yes.
Yeah,
Please go to our
website's great.
Yeah, and we would
Awesome.
love it if you can spread the word. I will just get in contact through the website. I would love you to mail me some. Whole Washington, we'll need a lot of these, so would absolutely. Thank you.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
thank you guys
Can
for. Oh yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up a little bit. So, yeah, Laura alluded to some of the coalitional work that's beginning to happen, and I'll just expand on it slightly, though it deserves more discussion. So we have long wanted more collaboration between statewide campaigns, and there's a lot of really interesting things that you can do when you're willing to work across state lines that you can't do if you're just looking at your own state. So right now we don't have anything official, but I can say that I personally and Laura, in fact, everyone on this call, other than you two, no offense, but everyone on this call has been part of regular meetings that we've been having, trying to bring in people from more states, and the intent is to formalize that into like a more real coalition that can deliver materially for these campaigns when they need support. And so keep your eye open for that. We'll be talking about it more. And then I wanted to give a shout out. I'm wearing this ridiculous tracksuit jacket from the Washington Transportation Coalition. This was a fundraising item that I bought at one of their events, but they actually officially brought us on as coalition partners here in Washington, and it's not necessarily super obvious what that would mean, but I think one of the reasons that it's a really exciting partnership is because as kind of disparate as, you know, their transit goals are from what we're talking about, and you can draw some connections like, oh, well, if we had fewer cars on the road, we'd all be healthier. Sure. But what's more interesting than that, right, is we're both going out here in front of Washington State and saying, look, we're talking about major investments in our public infrastructure. Yes, right? Like, this means that we do need to, like, you know, raise money for it. And it is going to represent fairly substantial changes in some cases, right? But we're out here saying, yeah, but it's improvement, it's better, it's worth it, right? And so I think that we're really excited. And the other thing is just both statewide, right? We're saying major statewide investments, right? So this is not a little Seattle thing, right? We're not talking about increasing the buses in Seattle. We think that the state should comprehensively look at transportation or comprehensively look at healthcare. And I think we will see much more significant results if we can kind of take things up to that level where they usually, if they get addressed at all, it's, you know, super local where it's limited in its ability to actually change the way things work.
Yeah, well, first of all, awesome jacket.
Yeah,
And
fresh
second-
tracksuit.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, I'd love to find out some more about that group. Andre, if you want to send me some information about them, would love to read up on that and maybe even get them on the podcast as well, because that's another, you know, extremely important initiative that needs to be covered more. So thank you for shedding some light and shouting out those comrades as well. But yeah, thank you all so much for coming on the Vanguard today. Really enjoyed catching up with you all. And of course, you're always welcome on the Vanguard. So just DM me if there's ever something you want to announce or discuss. We're more than happy to shine a spotlight on this movement. As always, you know, you guys are continuing on the fight in a real way that we're so proud of and so inspired by. So thank you so much for the work you do and for taking the time this afternoon to come back on the Vanguard. Everyone hit up those links in the description for Whole Washington and Red Berets to support the movements and get yourself a Red Beret. Like I said, it's, you know, getting colder outside, so it's a practical thing to have too, as well as a, you know, great thing for the solidarity. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Have a good one.
Thank you so much. And Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yeah, have a good one. You guys take care. Have a good
See you
time with your families.
2022.
Whew, that was an awesome panel. Great to catch up with some friends of the show and also to meet Lisa for the first time. Really enjoyed talking with her. But yeah, we love to spotlight Whole Washington and Red Berets as far as, you know, activists and organizations continuing on in the fight for universal health care, universal coverage. The Red Berets, Whole Washington, New York Health Act, they are on the Vanguard, truly living up to the name of our show and the ideals and values that we, you know, try to promote. So huge shout out. Always love chatting with our friends. But I guess we can sign off now unless you have anything else you wanted to talk about, Zach. We can just end with our shout out to the patron community. Thank you so much to everyone supporting the show on patreon.com/the Vanguard channel. We do shout out our patron community at the beginning and end of all of our live streams. So if you want to place on the shout out board and you want to support the show, then that link is in the description too. So yeah, just a huge shout out to our patrons. Really do make what we do possible and, you know, keep us coming at you guys at a pretty much daily basis. We try to, you know, put out as much content as possible, and it's made possible by these comrades and Vanguardians. So thank you so much, guys. You can check out the other benefits, our other patron exclusive benefits and perks in the description below. But with all that said and out of the way, everyone have a great rest of your Wednesday. We'll be back soon.
Bomb Hills Not People says, damn, Zach shut down that Merry Christmas. No, I don't give a shit what people say about Merry Christmas. I'm not a fucking anal person about that. But anyway, you guys have a good one. Merry Christmas, Bomb Hills Not People. And yeah, as Gavin said, appreciate the support from all the patrons. We'll be back before Christmas, though, for sure. So I'll catch you guys then. But yeah, peace out, everybody. And thanks again to everybody from Whole Washington. Love having you guys on.
Yeah, happy Festivus. Come on. Anyway, yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in today. Really appreciate it. Hit that like button, hit that sub button, and make sure to share with all your comrades the information about Whole Washington Red Berets. Spread the word, keep the solidarity alive, keep the movement on fire. Everyone, peace out, though. We'll see you later.
Yeah, peace out.